to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Welcome in. Tuesday, February 25th, the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Mike Wright, Jason Moore, I'm Andy Holloway. Another great episode for you. How you doing today, Jason? Your head is bobbing.
Yeah, well, it usually is during this time of the show because, Mike, that music slaps. Thank you very much for
You are welcome.
creating it. But also, I love the coaching changes episode. We've hinted and, talked in the news over the past couple months about these changes. But this is really, this matters for fantasy football. I feel like, scheme, are they faster pace of play? And not that we have a perfect crystal ball. I think we'll talk about some coaches on today's episode that I don't think their past is going to be indicative of their future, which might sound weird, but that's what we're trying to do here.
Towards the positive? Towards the negative?
Towards the negative for fantasy purposes.
It's about time.
Well,
I was going to say we have done this show every year, and I feel like it's just human nature to naturally maybe look towards the rosy side of coaching changes and the positives that they can produce. But as we look at today, we'll look at maybe a quick 1 or 2 word reaction to all the head coaching changes from last season and how you're feeling about them now. And I don't know. I don't want to be overly negative either. It's just there's so much turnover at the head coaching position, and then specifically offensive coordinators, consistency with offensive coordinators. Like, that's just not something you're going to get much of anymore in the NFL.
Yeah, pretty much half the league, as far as at least at the offensive coordinator position, changes. It changed this year. Like most years, it's about half the league. So yeah, there's not a lot of continuity, which is why general managers, I know some of you are listening.
Oh, tons of them, yeah.
Dude, stop hiring defensive head coaches, okay? Because what's going to happen is if you have a good offense with your offensive coordinator, you're going to lose them. And then you start over. The only ones with consistent offensive output are the Sean McVays and the Andy Reids and the Sean Payton. It's like when the head coach is the designer,
right?
Then you get to keep that into the future. That's just my opinion, which is correct.
I do feel like that would be my hopes and dreams if I were a organization in terms of having consistency.
Yeah, but you're a Cardinals fan, so you get John Gannon.
Yeah.
Pew, 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 pew.
Yeah, you do lose defensive coordinators then, right? Those are the ones that will go on to these stupid franchises, I guess.
From time to time.
say.
They'll be back.
Like,
most
of them
once
are.
they're done being a head coach, they'll be back.
Staley, Saleh.
Yes, Saleh's back, yeah.
Yeah, Gannon eventually.
Maybe.
Will get into all the coaching changes today.
Gannon's a tough one to, like, how do you crack what's going on with the Arizona Cardinals? I think they were a 4-win team.
I'm not saying Gannon.
2 years ago, they went up to 8. Like,
I'm not saying that Gannon
16 next year
is a bad coach at all. I'm saying that the Arizona Cardinals are a bad franchise, and therefore he will lose, and therefore he will get fired. That's just kind of what happens for the Cardinals.
How does one go from a bad franchise to a good franchise?
I don't think
because it is quoted.
There
a
are
lot.
2 ways. There are 2 ways to go from a bad franchise to a good franchise.
Okay.
Way number 1, change of ownership, because it's usually a problem with ownership. For the Cardinals, change of ownership. Way number 2, draft a really good quarterback with the first pick. Like the Bengals right now look like a good franchise because they got Joe Burrow.
Gotcha.
That's gonna heal a lot of wounds
but
you've
still
got
a bad franchise.
No. He's changed it into a good franchise whilst playing.
But once he's gone, will they go back?
Absolutely.
He does seem to be the one forcing the issue with the free agent signing.
Oh, he's doing great work.
So we will get into coaching changes, talk through them all today. We got news to catch you up on. Our shows last week were pre-recorded, so we have some catch-up to do. And a reminder, this is your final week to head over to ultimatedraftkit.com. If you pre-order it before March 1st, you'll be entered to win a listener league spot to come and play with us in 2025. We also have some other perks and freebies we're giving away with that early Pre-order ultimatedraftkit.com. If you're already an Ultimate Foot Clan member, you have the UDK and you're already entered to win ahead of time. So,
and if you've never had the Ultimate Draft Kit, if you've been a long-time listener, you're listening to this time of year, you've probably listened for a long time. Maybe you've never checked it out. It really is a tool that has proven itself valuable. The tier-based drafting and the information, the breakdown on each player's, some of the inside stuff that we've got there, it's a really good tool. So I highly recommend, and now's the time because it's pre-order pricing. You can get the Dynasty information right off the bat, and you're entered to win a Listener League spot. So it's a no-brainer to me.
UltimateDraftKit.com. And like you said, Dynasty Pass, all the stuff is out there right now, your pre-Combine release.
And there will be an update here in, what,
Combine
2 weeks?
Combine is approaching.
Combine's next week, right?
Yeah. 27th is the first day, but not with players that we care about.
Yeah, there you go.
Right. Wait till Saturday. That's the big day for us fantasy fans.
Yeah, this week. It's wild. All right, let's talk some news.
News and notes from around the league.
I mean, I guess we should get an update over here. Al Borland back in studio. Last week we missed him. Good to see you're still completely shielded from the cameras with that hat. You had been involved in a little hit and run.
Oh, yes.
Correct. I can't remember. Were you the one that ran, or was it the other?
I was not.
Oh, it wasn't you. What? Any progress?
Vigilante justice?
Finding the person that hit your vehicle?
The police were able to give me the person's insurance information and all their personal info, so I've got an insurance claim started. They're doing the investigation.
So do they don't give
Boring.
They don't give you any details like we locked him up, we threw him in the slammer?
No, they actually said there would be no consequences.
Yeah.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
For leaving?
Correct.
The scene of an accident?
They're not going to do nothing.
Correct. Is it because it's a parking lot?
I guess. I don't know. They just said there
All
wouldn't be any
write
actual
that down right here.
But their insurance should cover the damage to the vehicle.
Jeremy did mention that the other day, and I'm like, what?
That's not the society we should be living.
No, because
you shouldn't be able to hit somebody in a parking lot, get out, look at the damage, say, whoopsie-daisy, and drive off.
Like, this is out of control.
You know what the rule should be for no consequences is not only do you have to write a note, but it has to be like good penmanship.
Oh, I'm in big trouble.
You know what I mean? And some nice stationery. If you want.
You're not talking like calligraphy.
I'm saying
just nice, like legible.
Do people still do that?
Nah.
Calligraphy? I remember my ma got into calligraphy.
I don't think my kids. I think cursive is for signing your name.
I'll bet half of our audience right now doesn't have no idea what I said when I said calligraphy.
Hey, baby boy back there,
Falcon.
Falcon. Do you know what calligraphy is?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
What is it?
A writing style.
Yeah, no,
all right. That's good
fancy
enough.
writing.
That's
I mean, that's all I would call it.
Fancy writing. People used to do a lot of that.
Yeah.
Man.
Writing? Yeah.
Seems boring. Some news for you. Shedeur Sanders will not work out this week in Indy. He'll throw up pro day.
I'm shocked.
We are unfortunately heading into a place, I mean, well, maybe like lower level guys get more of an impact now, I guess, from the combine, but it's like the top guys, they don't go. We got news that Ashton Genty will not participate in the skills part of the combine.
Because why? Why do it?
Exactly. If you're locked in and there's nowhere to go but up, it unfortunately makes sense to not do it.
But Shedeur Sanders isn't locked in. That's the thing that's
he thinks he is.
He's locked enough.
He's locked in. I mean, I guess
what
my
could Sanders
point,
do skill-wise that could raise
hurt himself. I think he would hurt himself. I think this is a smart decision to not do it because he doesn't profile as that extreme athleticism. If he's throwing the ball next to other guys throwing the ball, he's not going to look like, wow, look at that cannon rocket arm. And so this is probably a smart move, but it's also, to me, it's like a little bit of a yellow flag of
he's
like
positioning himself for a specific team anyways. So that factors in too. Like he was going to be somebody that made it known what teams he's okay drafting him. And so I don't think he's necessarily interested in navigating his way to a certain spot as much as a certain team.
He's fascinating. I know he is the odds-on favorite to be the second quarterback drafted. A lot of mocks put him in the like pick, what is it, 3? Is that the Giants? But you still see a lot of dissenters who are like, no, he's a second-round type of pick in their evaluation. So he will be interesting to watch. Does it really happen?
Well, and you start to see, Giants are at 3. You start to see all of the press that comes out now, either against or in favor of a team for positioning purposes. I think a news blurb came out 2 days ago about how much Shedeur has impressed teams with his preparation, and we're a ways away, but it's gamesmanship time, and that means not risking your spot if you're at the top of the draft.
Yeah, the larger point of it is kind of a bummer that for plenty of prospects we don't get their numbers, and you can't plug in their athletic measurements into production profiles, things like that. Would love more.
Yeah, I would. I mean, unless you're there to break a record.
Right.
If you're going there to break a 40 record or something, or move yourself up. The Bengals announced their plans to franchise T. Higgins.
Well, reporting. The Bengals haven't said anything just yet, but there are reports coming out, and it makes all the sense in the world. The Bengals have plenty of cap. They can figure out a way to get all of their guys with the money that they have. We just got another announcement that the salary cap per team, the NFL announced that, and the number went up far more than teams were expecting.
From the 250s to the 280s? Is that right?
Yeah,
Kyle, are you on the line here?
It was a substantial jump and more than was projected. So this is great. This is the way that at least we get T. Higgins for one more year. Hopefully they can work out long-term plan.
That would just be – I mean, they're going to sign Jamar Chase this year. There's reports that he's looking for $40 million a year.
Yeah.
The tag, I think, would be about $26 million. Goodness gracious. To take 2 wide receivers, put $66 million.
They did report that the tag was done with the purpose of getting a long-term deal done.
Right.
Whereas last year it was the purpose of giving them one more year. It's going to fall in the range of $277.5 million, or between that and $281, up from $255. So $53 million over the last 2 years.
Well, let's do it. Let's get T there.
We have multiple pieces of news coming out of the Rams camp. First, that the team was said to be working out a contract extension for Kyren Williams, or rather that is a team priority. He's 25 years old, entering the final year of a rookie deal. So Kyren could find himself secure with maybe a different quarterback. The Rams have given Matthew Stafford permission to speak to other teams. It's been reported that this is about money. There are other teams that would be willing to pay Matthew Stafford more money than the Rams might be willing to pay him. And there are peripheral challenges that the Rams have dealt with just Matthew Stafford and his circle and some of the drama that creates.
It's interesting because that comes out, hey, Rams have given Stafford permission to go talk to people, and you immediately go, wow, he's going to look for a trade partner. Then you had an update on that that was, no, actually, the Rams have told Matthew Stafford to go see what other teams would pay him. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, go do the work for us.
They want to test the value of the marketplace because they're in a contract negotiation, and I think they're a little bit far apart when it comes to money. Matthew Stafford thinks he's, and according to his camp, there are people that are willing to pay, $50 million annually for his services, and then I don't think that's where the Rams are at. So in the end, I expect he will re-sign with the Rams, but this NFL, whenever you rewind the tape 2 years, I've said this before, but if you go look at 2 years ago football, you can't remember who all was on a different team. Like it's just crazy how things change.
I just have a weird feeling about this Stafford situation.
Of him going to a different team?
Of him leaving and the team being prepared to move on from him.
This is bizarre to me because, like,
would you rather have the number?
Does this work?
Would you rather have the number 3 pick and just take your shot? Let's say it's Sanders. If you're the Giants, or would you rather have Stafford for
$50 a year?
For $50 a year, but you're really setting up Malik Neighbors in the offense, and you're setting up your head coach. And
if I'm the Giants, I would much rather have Stafford.
That's the question.
Yeah,
because that's some discussions around the asking price would be the third pick.
Stafford just turned 37.
I mean, Brian Daboll has to win this year. He doesn't want a rookie.
If I'm able, please give me
the Raiders with Pete Carroll, the Steelers, who are still searching, right? Russell Wilson may not be back there, and the Giants are the three teams that I think are the most pressed to find a solution at quarterback. And
he would have a market. The problem is the Rams need a quarterback.
Yeah, but here's for fantasy.
He's 37.
For fantasy, I think this would be great because Matthew Stafford's a good quarterback, and he still has some time. I mean, I don't know if I wouldn't really want my franchise investing heavily into Stafford because the clock is running out, but he still has a couple years. And then, I mean, there was already rumors of Darnold going to the Rams anyways. And if Sam Darnold goes to the Rams, I'm happy. I think that McVay can work with Darnold's skill set, and we can still get tons of fantasy output from the Rams. And if Stafford goes to the Giants, we're going to get way more out of the Giants. So fantasy football players, this is a win.
You want the musical chairs.
I do, but I'm not a Rams fan.
Well, and the Rams are, they're getting younger, and it might be time. We'll see. Chris Godwin agreed to push back a contract void date. Some players have done this recently. There are a lot of reports that the Buccaneers and Godwin will be working towards a new deal. Godwin's injury was pretty severe, but he had been cooking with Baker Mayfield.
He was.
So there's a good chance that the injury actually leads to a pathway for him to go back there.
Sure.
Dolphins going to release Raheem Mostert. Mostert just turned 64 years old last week. So, no, he's going to be 33, and he's a free agent. Bears are releasing Gerald Everett. Andy Dalton agreed to a 2-year, $8 million extension to be the backup in Carolina / starter when needed. And Zach Martin, 7-time All-Pro offensive lineman for the Cowboys, retiring. So he has the same amount of All-Pro selections as holding penalties.
What?
In his career.
No way.
That's one of those all-time stats.
It's like the Larry drop
Yeah,
stat.
exactly.
Larry has more tackles than drops.
Yeah, when you see those superstar players who had a great career, they've usually got one of those crazy stats in their pocket. That's a cool one.
Martin was a beast.
It'll stink for, Dak Prescott, and he's played better and worse with offensive line being better and worse, so TBD on that.
All right, unless you guys have any other news, we'll take a break and jump into the coaching changes segment. All right, it's time.
Coaching Carousel.
I noticed on that the graphic that just came up, because it is a new coaching carousel graphic. Nice job by Mr. Ketchum, The Biggest Loser. I did notice though he chose to put Mike and I in some sort of like coaching beanie type of hat.
A coaching beanie?
I mean it looked like some sort of but Jason was the only one hatless.
When you got luscious locks like mine,
I just thought that was an interesting creative
Gotta
choice.
let it fly.
Sometimes we do things differently.
We don't call him the biggest loser for nothing.
7 new head coaches this year, 15 new offensive coordinators this year. Last year we had 8 new coaches, 5 the year before, 9 the year before that. Over the last 9 years, NFL teams have hired 60 different head coaches, and only 27 had NFL play calling experience, including 4 of the newcomers this year: Ben Johnson, Schottenheimer, Cohen, and Kellen Moore. Kind of wild. You mentioned the non-offensive head coaching hires and how it has not been a good run since 2018. And that is, well, it's a tough list. When you look at the defensive-minded head coaches, there's a few of them that we kind of say, okay, that's worked out okay.
Dan Quinn, year 1, seems great. D'Amico
Is
Ryans,
Dan Quinn
year 1,
not
seemed great.
Dan Quinn is such a year 1 coach. He's like Doug Peterson.
Yeah, it makes.
And he just makes such I think Pete Carroll will be great year 1.
When you
talk for the Raiders,
when you listen to Cliff Kingsbury and hear him talk about what he would do differently, he talks about how Quinn came in and really set a culture. And I think D'Amico Ryans did the same thing. You know, when these defensive coaches come in, they can set a personality and a standard, and that's awesome to help elevate a franchise. But can that work long term? You know, will that stick?
We'll see. I mean, obviously an amazing foundation in Washington, so he's got every shot at doing it. But if you go through the list, it's a tough list. Ja Rule. Don't forget Ja Rule.
I mean,
Ron Rivera, Brandon Staley, Robert Saleh, Matt Eberflus, Dennis Allen, Gannon, we'll see. D'Amico Ryans, you already saw, like, D'Amico Ryans is a good head coach, but you're already dealing with the problems of not hiring an offensive head coach because you had not Shane Steichen, Slowick. And then now you're making another change already. Gerard Mayo lasted 1 year, Antonio Pierce a year basically, and a little extra. And the jury's out on whether, you know, last year's hire, Raheem Morris in Atlanta, is that going to work out? TBD. Dave Canales, you know, probably did the best he could do in Carolina. Hard dog for the Chargers. Okay, that worked out pretty well. Pierce, Mayo, they're gone already.
Mm-hmm.
Mike McDonald in Seattle.
He's funny to me.
He's a TBD to me.
He is. He feels so TBD. First season, 10 wins. I mean, with Geno Smith, like he did,
yeah, that's a good job.
But it feels, I don't know, because they didn't make the playoffs or something. It just feels like he's.
They fired their OC.
A little bit, yeah. They fired their OC, and they were not happy with the results. But I feel like 10 wins, pretty good first season.
Brian Callahan took about 10 years off his life coaching Will Levis and the Titans this year.
Yeah.
And then the Commanders with Dan Quinn. It's looking good.
Oh, man, Will Levis. That was a good time.
Let's talk about teams with new head coaches and new offensive coordinators, starting with the headline hire. The Chicago Bears hiring Ben Johnson to replace Matt Eberflus, and he will be the primary play caller. Declan Doyle will be, in name, the offensive coordinator, but Ben Johnson will be rebuilding, as he said in his press conference, rebuilding the offense from the top to the bottom. I mean, just new play calls, new system, new everything.
Not from the bottom to the top.
Both directions.
He's starting at the top?
He's yeah.
Usually and then building it down.
He's building it downward.
How do you do that?
I don't know.
It's not the same as with buildings.
Okay. Well,
buildings
that's good.
Buildings are way different. Yep.
Gravity would really have a problem with building top down.
No.
One funny thing that I found this year, I don't know if you guys have seen this trend in preparation for the show, but it is a good year to have been a tight end coach. If you have,
I didn't notice
if you
that.
have experience as a tight ends coach, is great for you. Both these guys, Ben Johnson was a tight ends coach for Dan Campbell, who was, you know, a tight ends coach originally and a tight end originally, and then Deacon Doyle was a tight end. This is really Declan. Sorry,
he might be a deacon, but his name is Declan.
This is a really funny hire. He's very young. He's 29 years old. Does not have a ton of experience, but he's also not needed in a way that most offensive coordinators. Like, if you listen to him talk about this job, he basically is saying, I'm just here. It's literally like, I'm going to get Ben Johnson his coffee. I'm going to do everything I can to just support him and get him all the things he wants. And, like, I'm going to put some of these little plans together for him. But it really sounded like I'm just here to be his
He's there to help the vision that Ben Johnson has.
So we know the story with Chicago, 28th in points per game, 32nd in yards per game, despite throwing the ball the 8th most in the NFL. Caleb Williams, he had his problems that were definitely his problems. He had the highest pressure to sack ratio, which meant, okay, you're getting a lot of pressure, but you're also holding on to the ball too long. He was 44th out of 47 in qualifying quarterbacks in catchable target rate. When we talked about Rome Odunze the other day and the fact that I believe in Rome Odunze. I think he is a great player. His uncatchable pass rate is outrageous. There's a lot that needs to get fixed. You never know with a rookie whether that is a bit of a, you know, snowball effect. When you start in the NFL, you take a lot of hits. You know the pressure is going to come. Your timing gets sped up in the pocket. So you're trying to put the Bears and Caleb Williams in a position where they can succeed, and this is the best shot you have.
Look, Bears fans, I'm sure are
They're very
elated.
excited,
and I would be too. But I think there's got to be at least a tiny portion of you that you're like, dude, if Caleb Williams has a rough year and you got the coach, you got the offensive system, and it's just that's a lot of pressure. Like Caleb Williams has to improve drastically or people will be freaking out.
Yeah, you kind of – I mean, how do you compare that to what we expected from Canales and Bryce Young making an improvement last year? I know like it's weird because we've been so negative about Bryce Young or started out so negative.
Yeah.
But it's not a false comparison, right? I mean, the Bears were a 5-win team. Caleb had his struggles. Bryce Young – people basically threw him away as a first-round bust, but Dave Canales was the hotness coming out of Tampa.
Right.
It does seem maybe a little bit.
There's certainly comparisons. It's Caleb showed us more than Bryce Young did as a rookie, so I think that he has at least that going.
Yeah, the skills that Caleb has, if you match it with an offensive mind to set you up for success, because the big problem with Caleb, you just brought it up, Andy, his time to throw in the pocket, his holding onto the ball, his not knowing where to go, whether it's the speed of the game or whether it's just I can wait and do better. I think the system is going to force Caleb Williams to get the ball out a little bit better and have more clear options. But then you match that with the tools that Caleb has. I think this is going to succeed.
This is one area that we hadn't talked about before. I don't know if you have opinions on it. I do think it's a little bit ironic that Ben Johnson and the inherits a free agent signing at running back that was the former running back jettisoned from the Lions. When you're a head coach coming in, do players fit your personnel group? Obviously, he's got Caleb and got to work on that, got Rome. But whether he falls in love with what DeAndre Swift brings to the table,
right.
Whether are they a team that could surprise in the draft with a running back that fits Ben Johnson's vision for the offense? Not necessarily free agencies, DeAndre Swift last year.
I think they would surprise me if they didn't take
somebody.
A running back. It doesn't have to be splashy, but just the depth of this year's running back class. You could get a guy early day 3.
By the way, over the last decade, there have been 35 quarterbacks that were drafted in the first round, and 16 of those had a new head coach in year 2. 19 had a new play caller in year 2.
Wow.
So that is 54% had a new play caller their second year. When you are drafting at the number 1 spot and you've got 11 guys on both sides of the ball,
so much for the quarterback saves my job.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Now, real quick, gut feeling right out of the gate, does Caleb Williams make the leap in year 2 or yes or no?
Yes.
The leap to what? I think he will improve
to the point where you would look back and say he made a leap this year.
Well, I'm saying, are you does he leap to be a top 5 fantasy quarterback?
No,
is that the
at
question,
the end of the year, are you fully convinced that this is a franchise quarterback? I think that's the leap he needs to make this year.
I would say yes.
Yeah, the fears that you just brought up with the fan base, will they be able to sleep after the season?
I believe so.
Okay. Dallas, new head coach, new offensive coordinator, Brian Schottenheimer.
Kind of. I mean, their offensive coordinator shifted up to the head coach. So they do have a new head coach and a new offensive coordinator, but last year's offensive coordinator still in charge.
Clayton Adams, Cardinals offensive line coach, takes over.
Tight end coach before that.
Oh, all right.
You see it? Just wait.
This is maybe what the NFL is looking at, the tight end position.
I think the tight end position is interesting
so many
because
good ones.
It's I think the tight end position is about, this is ironic that this is an offensive line coach, tight end coach. You look at what the Lions' superpower was, their offensive line play and how they block and their scheme for keeping that together. Some of it's personnel, but some of that scheme. And so one of the good things from the Cardinals this last year was the offensive line play and their scheme of pulling tackles and guards and having this kind of new modern offense with a lot more athleticism in that line play. And so I think the tight end coach makes a lot of sense because you're looking at both the passing and the line at that point.
Well, Dallas will give Brian Schottenheimer his first opportunity to lead a franchise. He's been at the offensive coordinator or passing game coordinator position since 2006. Jets, Rams, Seahawks, Jags, Cowboys. Mike McCarthy, they couldn't come to an agreement to bring him back. McCarthy, whether it's willingly or unwillingly, will be taking a year off.
He said willingly.
21 points per game.
I believe him.
His choice. I mean, he really said, I'm going to take a break.
I think that's the move, though, don't you?
When he finally got released and allowed to talk to people and there were a few jobs left, that was the move.
Well, even some of these long-standing coaches, I feel like that's the best play is just take the year.
Oh, yeah.
You come back in such high demand. I mean, Pete Carroll just got a job. He's over 200 years old.
Yeah, take a year off. I go find a broadcasting job.
Right.
Like in a studio. You Sean Payton it.
Yeah.
That's what you do. Like you disappear. Well, not disappear, but you switch jobs. The NFL audience as a whole kind of forgets, like, oh, this is why I didn't like that person. And then they come back and you're like, oh, I like him again because they're a TV personality.
And it's worked for him before. Mike McCarthy did this. So.
Yeah.
We had a lot of success with the Dallas offense 2 years ago. CeeDee Lamb was the #1 fantasy wide receiver. Dak Prescott looked amazing, won championships down the stretch. Last year we saw some of the issues with the offense that certainly were not like fixated on a coaching mistake, right? You didn't have.
Well, some say that.
I mean, I would say that. I mean, it wasn't.
I'm talking about Rico.
Well,
I'm talking about
okay.
insisting on playing Zeke for half the year.
I think regardless of Rico's
bad.
performance and how good he would have done, he was always going to represent a step down from Tony Pollard and Zeke combination.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then on the other side of the football from CeeDee Lamb, you never had an option that was viable. I mean, Brandon Cooks was either injured or unproductive. Jalen Tolbert, there's not other threats out there, and those holes are still there. It doesn't matter that Schottenheimer's taken over. There's still problems in the running back room. There's talk of trade-ups for Ashton Genty, for Dallas, which may be required if you want to put him on the roster. I think that
Cowboys are at 12.
I thought that let's verify that real quick. Dallas is sitting.
Let's see.
Dallas is sitting at 12.
Kyle?
Dallas is sitting at 12.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you. I didn't need you, Kyle. Go away.
But I mean, the Saints could be in play.
Man, yeah.
And there could be other trade-up teams.
It feels like the most obvious Dallas Cowboy pick if they stay at 12 and Genty's there for them to do that. But they got some offensive line. Speaking of, Jay, you're talking about the offensive line and all that stuff. It's funny how we forget. Like, we all know that your offensive line or defensive line, aside from your quarterback, like if you have a great offensive line, guess whose offense looks really good?
Mm-hmm.
With
that's how good Jared Goff is.
Like guys who you would say are just they're fine players in the NFL. Give them a great line, great things happen. So bringing Clayton Adams in to me was one of those, like, it felt like a head scratcher, but when you really dive in and look at the success that the Cardinals had at the offensive line and running the ball with James Conner for an offensive line that you did not expect that level of success, I think it was a savvy move.
What are the like, if they need offensive line, if they need to build maybe in a less flashy way than Ashton Genty, what are the odds that this is more of a wasted season for Dallas and that they decide to make a splash next year? They build.
I think you could
in a boring way.
I think you splash in the second round.
I agree. The running back draft class is so deep this year. I think that could hurt Genty just from a standpoint of even people who have him as their number 1 running back on the board. They might say, hey, I can get a really good prospect next round. There's one offensive tackle left. Let's pull the trigger there. I think Schottenheimer taking over, the continuity from what we've seen him here in Dallas. 2 years ago, they were the number 1 scoring offense in the league. In fact, previous to this season, including in Seattle, he's got 4 straight years. This would have been his 5th of being a top 10 scoring offense. We've had a lot of fun crapping on Schottenheimer over the years, but he has had enough success And I know there's some metrics you could point to that say they're very negative and some that are positive. The one that is the most relevant for next season was the previous time we saw him as the offensive coordinator for this team with Dak Prescott. So I'm not too concerned about a real letdown season, assuming Dak is healthy. I think the Cowboys offense bounces back to being at least top half.
Yeah, I mean, I think for fantasy managers that would be exciting. I don't think they can do it without fundamentally adding talent to the offensive side of the football.
Yeah, they
I don't
really
think
feel like –
Go ahead.
It really feels like CeeDee Lamb can't lift that much. Like,
No,
there's
you can't.
just too – it's too heavy on his shoulders. Get the man some help.
You need the running back position solidified, and you need to find another weapon in the passing game. I don't think, if the offensive line is weakening, that CeeDee Lamb's going to be able to do enough. I know Rico was the savior in your mind, but running the football last year was as bad as the numbers can get. 27th in yards per game, 27th in EPA per play. That's so important, whether that's first round or not. With Genty, we'll see. But let's move on.
Duval.
Oh, man.
Jacksonville.
That guy still hasn't been fired.
Duval.
Liam Cohen, he's going back to Tampa. No, he's not. This 39-year-old is flying the coop and arrives in Jacksonville.
He better succeed.
Doesn't he have one-and-done fears written all over him?
And I'm saying he better succeed because the move he pulled on the Bucks, I feel like that gets you in trouble. Like,
They have
with the like if it didn't work out and he loses his head coaching job and all the other teams are like, dude, you're a snake.
Yeah.
We know what you did.
You want to hire him back as your OC?
No way.
I think most teams are legitimately forgiving of head coaching opportunities, no matter how you do it, because you don't get many of them. Now, they did hire Joey Gladstone from Full House to be their general manager. I don't know if you saw that.
What?
Yeah.
No.
Pretty sure that's who they got.
Let me go look.
I think it's Joey Gladstone. They have a whole new head coach, OC, general manager universe going on in Jacksonville.
Talking about James?
James Gladstone.
Yeah,
Okay.
but that's close enough. Joey Gladstone is
Pretty
managing
sure
the Jags.
Yes.
Cut it out.
Yes, thank you. I was
so
trying to get there.
Regarding Liam Cohen, I know he's got funny sound bites.
Does he?
Duval.
And he's just so cringy with his smile on his face, right? He does have success. He if you go back the last several years, he was the coach. We talked about on this episode when he was taking over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He had gone back and forth with the Rams in Kentucky.
This dude is not afraid of moving.
No, he is not afraid of, like, what's my next paycheck that I can take a little upgrade and go somewhere else.
Kyle confirmed 11,216 miles of moving for Liam Cohen over the last decade.
Yeah, he's not afraid of it. But he has come out and said when they say, what is your offense going to be? And I know he's got some dumb sound bites, but he said he's going to build his offense around Trevor Lawrence. So,
well, that's
whoa.
Okay.
You know what I mean? He's going to take his quarterback.
I hadn't thought of
Did they
that.
stop the presses on that one?
Well, no, but they reported it like it was breaking news. I mean, when I was researching this, it was like all the Jaguar newspapers like, he's going to build around Trevor. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Of course he's going to build around
If you
Trevor
had told me
Lawrence.
Brian Thomas
that.
Jr., I would have been like, all right.
Yeah, there you go. So anyways, that's good. He's going to build around the quarterback for the offense.
The guy that signed the 5-year, $275 million contract.
That's the one.
Thank goodness.
It's funny because we always need a head coaching villain, and he's it, man. He's slid right in. And it will be so good for fantasy if he's great, if he does what he did with Baker last year and what he's done with Matthew Stafford in the past. I mean, he's got a good pedigree, and it would be great if he succeeds, but I'm rooting against it.
There are certain franchises that always slip on the banana peel.
Yeah.
And Jacksonville feels like that. Now, do we have fantasy football darlings on this team? Sure. Brian Thomas, let's go. Let's have success. I would love to see Liam Cohen work some magic and get you the football, and Trevor Lawrence be relevant in a somewhat consistent, predictable fashion, or a running back like Travis Etienne reemerging as the talent that he probably actually is, as opposed to what we saw last year. These are all the things that we're waiting to see. This was the 26th best offense in points per game, 25th in yards per game. They couldn't run the football. 25th in yards per game. You've got major needs, a tackle, interior offensive lineman. If you want to build around Trevor Lawrence and $275 million worth of Trevor Lawrence, perhaps you should protect him so he's not either playing hurt or hurt. That would be a goal that you'd need to accomplish. So we'll see what they can do in the draft. Just 39 years old, and Baker gets another offensive coordinator to deal with. Do you guys have any other thoughts on
I don't know
the Jacksonville coaching changes? Yeah, Grant Udinski.
Udinski, and when Liam Cohen gets done, it'll be Udunsky. You know what I mean? Like,
Swish.
Thank you.
Right, yeah.
Man,
Did you say he's cringy?
really
or?
wanted to get that one out.
Hey, it's just a layup. It was set up right there for me.
When did you plan that
Oh,
joke?
I didn't
man.
plan that joke. That just came. I don't think that Doug Peterson, has a nice start at a change of location and then fades off. But I'm not sure how much more Liam Cohen can get out of Trevor Lawrence than Doug Peterson did.
Al, is that true? Did he set himself up for that joke?
Yeah, he said it was set up right there for me, but he's the one that put the ball on the tee.
Andy said, "What do you think about?"
Oh, I just said his name.
Yeah,
Oh, that was the ball.
that
on
was
the tee.
that was how the ball was put on the tee,
Just saying the
and
name.
then it was like grand slam and t-ball. That's easy.
Okay. The Raiders hired Pete Carroll, who is turning 74 in September, and Chip Kelly, who is 61 years old. Both of these names were more exciting to say 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
He was old 10 years ago.
I know. Well, 10 years ago, Pete Carroll was more exciting at the age that Chip Kelly currently is.
Yeah.
So, we've been around the block with Chip Kelly a little bit, right? Philadelphia for a couple of years, 49ers for a brief moment in time, and then UCLA's, had Chip Kelly for a few years. I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Raiders, terrible offense last year, terrible rushing offense, dead last in the league. I feel like either one or both of you are like excited about this.
I am.
That would be one of us then, because I was very excited. I said I kind of fought you guys a little bit when Pete Carroll was hired. I said I don't think it's a bad head coaching hire because he is a good head coach.
I don't think it's a bad hire for the Raiders.
Right, for the Raiders, for the NFL. And then Chip Kelly coming in, I was very excited about. I mean, Chip Kelly is always,
I'm for it.
in all of his years, the pace of play pretty much every year is like number one in total plays, or number one or number two. His pace of play has been outrageously good.
He has said he won't do the hurry up as much.
Not only has he said, so this is the coach where, from a fantasy football standpoint, I have soured on. I am not as excited. Looking at what he has done, what he has said. I mean, he is swearing up and down. He's a changed man, essentially. But the thing is if you look at what he did last year.
I won't go back to my old ways.
In Oregon, he ran 81.4 plays per game. That was 9th in the country. For UCLA, 72.1. That was 17th in the country. This last year, winning a national championship.
It's getting old and boring.
They were not no huddle. They were huddle up. He ran 61.8 plays per game. That's 120th in the country. To great success. Now he is working under Pete Carroll, a guy who is not probably – I was surprised by this hire because it's like, is Pete Carroll really going to want to run no huddle and try to get out there and run 70 plays in a game? And
he won't be able to keep
They're
up.
trying to get to one play a game.
Right. So I guess this is from a fantasy standpoint. And, Mike, you can share the rosy side. I worry that what Chip Kelly is saying is true.
It's okay if it's true.
They did win the national title.
The excitement for Chip Kelly, and look, it's still the Raiders. The excitement is just, I think this team will really improve. I think, I agree. Pete Carroll's a really good coach. They're gonna make this team better. They're just sometimes you have barren wastelands like the Patriots last year, and probably the Patriots this year. Like, it's when there's just no one on the team, that sucks.
Other than their starting quarterback, running backs, and wide receiver, though, where are the holes on the offense?
Right.
The line.
Okay.
Yeah, just the offensive line. There's a lot of holes.
It's everywhere.
For the defenders to come through.
But with Pete Carroll as like the general and then bringing in the Kelly offense, I think we could have some good stuff. I mean, Jacoby Myers will be massively undervalued. yet again.
This is an offense that's either going to have a rookie behind center or it's going to have Darnold,
Or
Stafford, Cousins, Rodgers.
I think it'll be one of those. Listening
Jacoby
to
I
Brissett,
think
somebody
it'll
in
be
that
Rodgers.
tier.
listening to
Russell
Chip Kelly,
Wilson.
Chip Kelly get interviewed about like what's your philosophy for the offense. A lot of it is it depends on who's at quarterback, and they're going to take a look at everything at their disposal. He said he's going to look at who's available on the free agency market, who's available on the draft, and who's available on the roster. But it was in that order. It was like, oh, okay. It just doesn't.
The roster.
And
right?
we could look at those guys
yeah.
too. These are two new coaches that they're inheriting those guys. Those guys are under contract, so they've got a leg up to be the starter, but they are not their guys, and they know that quarterback is a problem. So I feel like coming into this franchise, you are taking a heavy look at every current starting NFL quarterback. Can you trade for them? Who's available on the free agent market? And then the draft, because they've got a pretty high draft pick.
Overall. Yeah, since 2012, out of all the head coaches hired 60+, only 2 of what looks like about 12 have finished with winning seasons in year one, above 500. Ironically, Bruce Arians was 2 of them because he was hired at 61 and then 67. Jim Harbaugh last year. Harbaugh and Arians, the only 2 to be above 500 as a rookie head coach above that age. I guess Frank Reich got the shot. What a 1-10 start to the year.
Have you heard? You were talking about Shedeur Sanders trying to manufacture where he's going to play or where he's willing to play.
Yeah, I would say his camp, his team,
His
father.
team, yeah, daddy. I would say, have you heard anything like the Raiders?
I think he'd love to go there.
If he would love to go there, that makes sense because I
don't
think
think he can.
I think he can get past the Giants. Then New England has they've got their quarterback. Jacksonville has their quarterback, and then it's the Raiders. So
This is you saying though that the Titans and Browns are not going quarterback.
not going Shedeur, yeah.
Well, I think the Titans are taking Cam.
Right, but then you've got
Cleveland
passing on him, or
I'm just saying,
him
do you think
passing on
his team is
passing on Cleveland?
right?
Yes.
If they are going to dictate, they're not going to be like
2 pick. The Browns select quarterback Shedeur Sanders. He's like, no,
nope.
no,
I
thank
mean,
you.
he'll say that behind closed doors. If the Giants traded for Stafford, then that would put. I guarantee you the Rams would go somewhere other than quarterback there, if they were going to bring in Darnold. And then, like you said, the Patriots and Jags, maybe Shedeur could fall to 6. So it's a good point. We'll take a break and jump into some more names. Bit of a retread tour we're going on. Carroll and Kelly.
The NFL? No.
Carroll and Kelly, and now the New England Patriots bring in Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels. Josh McDaniels, they should just, like his place, they should just put some plastic over his furniture. And
Every couple years,
I'll
he's
be back.
he knows he'll be the third time, right? Third time back as the offensive coordinator. Look, I love Mike Vrabel. I think he's a great leader of men and a head coach. But you talked about the, kind of, bear cabinet situation that you had in New England. I personally love Drake May. I think Drake May is going to be a very solid NFL quarterback. He's a great runner. I think you give him some pieces and you build the team the right way and you find him a consistent running game and an offensive line.
Got a lot of building.
Yeah, so I agree completely. I mean, we've talked about my love for Vrabel. Even though he's a defensive head coach, he is a special, I think, unique head coach. His in-game management is usually outstanding. His motivation is great. It seems like a Dan Campbell type of, relationally, not play style or team style by any means. Very, very different, but just relationally inside the locker room, commands respect. And I think this is a great hire for the NFL and for the Patriots. For fantasy football, this does not strike me as exciting. It doesn't make me more hopeful for Drake May, and I agree with you. I think Drake May is a good quarterback, but he doesn't have the weapons. And you saw Brady with McDaniels have always successful years, but they weren't always fantasy gold. When you had Randy Moss, okay, you're out there throwing a ton of touchdowns, but they have bare cabinets, like you said, Andy.
I feel like they need to spend this draft doing the most boring things possible.
Offensive line.
They need to build an offensive line. They used 13 different starters last year. That was the second most of any team in the last 26 years. I mean, 32nd in pressure rate. I mean, you're lucky that Drake May can move a little bit because his career could have been, you've seen rookies take enough sacks to where they're not the same. And
their first 5 picks should be the line.
It's the perfect year to do it. It's
Yeah.
perfect year to do it. People are not going to have really high expectations for you next year. So get the stuff that fans don't want to see, get it out of the way.
But for fantasy purposes, you don't want to see a free agent like T. Higgins or who's now franchised. But you don't want to see prolific players go to New England right now.
No, they don't.
So, they're a couple years away. The Saints welcome Kellen Moore, just 36 years old. We call that less than half a Carroll.
That is a fact.
What?
That's right?
So these guys go to there's like the big head coaching meeting.
Yeah.
And Pete Carroll's gonna be like, "Who's this kid?"
Kellen Moore.
It's like, I work here. I'm Kellen Moore.
Super Bowl champion.
I like
Kellen
that.
Moore.
That's the opposite Adam
Adam
Thielen voice. I like it a lot.
Even though he is
older than Adam Thielen. This is job age.
Perspective. Yeah.
Yes.
So Kellen Moore arrived. Hey guys. Are you excited about this hire?
I
Cautiously?
personally, I'm
Offensive hire.
cautiously optimistic. He's bringing his OC with him that was basically his quarterback's coach. So he's been the offensive coordinator the last 2 years for the Chargers and the Eagles.
Talking about your guy.
Talking about Kellen Moore. You think he's my guy because we share the last name?
Sure. That's what I was going for.
But yeah, his quarterback's coach from both of those destinations. So this is the third year in a row these two men have moved to upgrade their opportunity and try to run an offense. I think they've been pretty successful.
The amount of time you have avoided saying his offensive coordinator's name.
Yeah, Doug.
Doug
who?
Dougie in. You know what I mean?
You have been dancing around this name.
It's Nussmeier. Doug Nussmeier.
Not Nussmeier?
I believe it's Doug Nussmeier.
Oh, yes, they were together in Dallas, L.A., Philadelphia.
They brought in Staley, right?
Yes, defensive coordinator Brandon Staley, no longer mean mugging on the sideline in Los Angeles.
Just incredible of Kellen.
That poor
Kellen
soul,
Moore is
dude.
the boss now.
I know, they flip spots.
So-
Look, talk about fantasy, though, because this is a team that needs help at wide receiver profoundly, I think, with Olave's injury history. You need help on the offensive line. I think you have your running back situation,
You can't spend any more.
right. You really
You can draft somebody, but
you could draft somebody, but Kellen Moore can get the most out of Alvin Kamara, I think.
And Kellen Moore has been – his offenses have really highlighted the slot wide receiver. You saw that a couple years ago with Dallas. CeeDee Lamb led the NFL in slot receiving yards. Then he goes to the Chargers. Keenan Allen had the most slot receptions per game in the NFL. Then he goes to the Eagles. Devontae Smith moved more into the slot.
more than usual.
More than he did the previous year. 5 receiving touchdowns in the slot. That was the 4th most in the NFL. So, I'm curious – right now Chris Olave is their main quality offensive weapon, and I'm curious if they utilize him more in the slot and get more out of him so long as they can get him a quarterback that's not throwing murder balls.
No, they're going to have the same quarterback.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, that's a problem.
Carr will do that.
Well, then until Olave is carded off. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Busted.
Oh, man. I like that one. I'm
What
going to
is
go on
going on
record.
today?
I'm going to go on record. I like that one. There wasn't a T. There wasn't a T in there.
No.
Yeah.
There wasn't
no.
a pitch.
It was
Just swinging out air.
What's the offensive coordinator's name again?
Nussmeier.
Okay. I feel like, we'll be watching closely what the pieces are going to be in New Orleans. 5 games they won last year. Jason looked like he was well on his way to a head shave. Well, I guess he was regardless. But 5-12, it fell apart. It's an offensive head coaching hire, and it's the opposite of what the Jets did. Because the Jets brought in another defensive first-time head coach.
It's wild. The Jets.
Aaron Glenn, he's got a lot of, experience and attitude and locker room bravado.
I can definitely see.
But we're back in the same place with the Jets. We got Rex Ryan. We've got Robert Saleh. We've got Aaron Glenn. They have their type, which is defensive, gritty, New York Jets football. And okay, here we are.
Yeah, I mean they want to change the locker room, and this is that type, that Raheem Morris. You know, that we were just talking about. You're going to come in and set a standard, set a culture. I think he can do that. But I worry for fantasy purposes, this is really – so Tanner Engstrom is the offensive coordinator coming in, and this was the passing game coordinator last year with the Detroit Lions. So Aaron Glenn is bringing one of his guys from the Lions over. But it wasn't like he gets Ben Johnson. So this is a very raw offensive opportunity. Like, you know, it's like I don't know a lot about Tanner Engstrom. We don't really scout passing game coordinators very often. Obviously, the Lions were a good offense, but they had a lot of people above him and a lot of talent there.
Did you see we have, you know, with Rodgers being let go and the Jets now in desperate need of a quarterback, the trade request for your boy, it went away?
Oh, for Garrett?
Yeah, Garrett Wilson said he's comfortable with the direction of the team.
That report was, at least at the time, they're like, this is directly linked to Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, if you like take that bag of poop out of the locker room, you're fine with the locker room.
I think he should keep it, and we should trade Garrett Wilson away somewhere where he can be awesome.
There's
because it's not going to be awesome.
They don't have a quarterback unless they draft one at 7. You know, a newer, inexperienced
Are they a better
coordinator
team
for a defensive head coach.
Will they be a better team than New England this year without a quarterback?
No, I don't think so. I would put the Jets at the bottom of the division.
I think they're probably slightly better.
Man.
Just
It's
because
gonna
of
be brutal.
the defensive side, maybe with Aaron Glenn will be successful. But, I mean, look at you're like talking about a division when we just brought up 2 teams that just are overhauling their coaching staffs and are not going to be competing this year.
Right.
So, you know, when we get to talk about Miami, by default, Miami ends up 2 in this division. Despite barely winning games against the plus 500 teams, these 2 teams, the Jets and New England, and I know things can be surprising and you get new head coaches in there, but, you know, the Dolphins are sitting there with a coaching staff that could be fired at any moment.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
next year if they don't do something good this year.
Buffalo's sitting pretty on top of the division. So we'll probably wrap it up there for today's episode of the show, and we'll talk some more offensive coordinators over the next couple of episodes in terms of changes made on that side. But those were all the head coaching offensive coordinator combo changeovers. And any final thoughts, any parting words on your boy Nussmeier?
On Nussmeier specifically, I just want to I want to call him Dougie in, and so that's
Not like Nussy?
I'm not
The
comfortable
Loch
with that.
Ness Monster?
Okay,
Yeah,
then
I
now
mean-
we're talking. We're getting closer and warmer.
Yeah, I mean, this is all stuff we can do this stuff for you, Jay, if you don't
All
want
right.
to bring out the big guns like you did earlier.
Dude. I mean, with the murder balls Derek Carr throws, I love the carded off. That's
Don't.
because he's. I don't. You know, I hate.
You did it again?
It was a great. It was like a double.
See,
all right,
I
was,
think you
know,
could have put Carted off. I think you put the T in there.
You think the T would have been an upgrade?
I think the T would have been an upgrade because then the joke would have been more like
the only hardship I have here is
because he's not carded
I don't
off.
want to make.
No.
I
he's
don't.
carted off.
I don't want to make jokes. I don't want to make jokes about a player getting carted off because
Right.
that's
You
the worst
did.
thing in football. No, I didn't. That's why I put the D in there because it was carded
But then-
off. Derek Carr is bringing him off the field.
It doesn't
you got
make
a red
sense, though.
card and they
Yeah.
got kicked out of the game?
I don't know. Just workshop this stuff. With
All
us.
right, all right. Well, I'll
I think
talk
that
off air. We'll talk.
Your
We'll figure it
toilet
out.
trophy is rubbing off on your jokes.
Hmm.
Thursday, we got the 10 Things to Remember episode. And don't forget, go to ultimatedraftkit.com, pick it up before March 1st. Get a chance to come and play with us in the Listener League in 2025. And next Tuesday, yeah, that's right, free agent predictions time. Yes, the NFL season, it's never over. So 10 Things to Remember, though, on Thursday. That'll be a really fun one. Always is. We'll work on Jason. We'll get there.
It's impossible.
Cartid.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.